You're being exposed to radiation right now. It's coming at you from both space and the soil, from water and food. Your body itself is radioactive, and you're being exposed to microwaves and radio waves, both natural and human-made. Wi-Fi, TV, radio stations, cell phones, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. And 5G is just getting started. Qualcomm, Samsung, Verizon, LG, Sprint, all these companies and more are right now working to build out the 5G ecosystem. So the question is, what are all these things doing to you? People like Joel Moskowitz are concerned and see cell phones as a massive risk factor to public health.
We have no assurance that 5G is safe, for that matter, that 4G is safe. I've only found 3 studies on 4G. They came out of China, and they all indicated changes in brain function.
And Moskowitz isn't alone. Camilla Reese has spent the last 12 years of her life trying to educate the public on what she sees as a risk greater than climate change.
I've been really amazed at the resistance to learning the truth, the spin that the industry puts out, learning that the exposure guidelines that the FCC uses are totally not protective. Really, I would call them fraudulent.
Right now, the FCC requires that every phone on the market be tested and given a value corresponding to the amount of radiation it emits. It says that value is well below the point at which adverse health effects could occur. But still, these kinds of concerns about health risks, usually cancer associated with cell phones and especially 5G, are everywhere on the internet. Most of us are not radiation scientists, oncologists, or medical physicists, so how do we know what's going on? The International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, is the World Health Organization's cancer agency. Since 1971, it's had a program that convenes groups of experts to look at whether specific things cause cancer. It then defines those things' cancer risks as either definite, probable, possible, uncertain, or not probable. In 2011, as a result of one of those groups, it classified radiofrequency electromagnetic radiation, the kind that comes from cell phones, as possibly carcinogenic. Scientists don't know of a way they could be, but if they are, though, it would have to be through a mechanism we don't currently understand. Scientists often describe things in ways that make sense to other scientists, but are confusing to everyone else. The WHO's classification from 2011 is a good example of how that can lead to misunderstandings. Let's try to take a clear look at the science behind cell phone radiation and what we know about it. Radiation is just a form of energy, but it comes in different strengths. You've got low-energy radio waves on one end of the spectrum and super high-energy gamma rays on the other. Even visible light is radiation. And understanding the effects of radiation at different energy levels is key when thinking about risk. The wavelengths of radiation, like the distance between crests of ocean waves, can differ. It's these differing wavelengths that define how high energy the radiation is. The shorter the length between crests, the higher the energy. Another way to describe radiation is by using hertz, a unit of frequency which tells you how many crests in that wave are happening per second. So, for example, 3G and 4G radiation is around 1 to 2 billion hertz, or 1 to 2 gigahertz. 5G moves up in the spectrum, using frequencies from 1 gigahertz all the way up to 70 gigahertz. And if you were exposed to enough of any of these frequencies, it would affect your body by heating it. That's how a microwave oven works, and why there are limits on how powerful cell phone radiation can be. There's a certain point at which radiation has enough energy to do more than that, and actually makes changes to the atoms in your body. If it reaches that point, it becomes ionizing, which means it has enough energy to knock electrons out of atoms and do things like give you cancer and damage your DNA. This process is also the reason radiation therapy can be used to treat cancer, by beaming ionizing radiation at cancer cells and damaging their DNA. This is the kind of radiation you probably think of when you hear the word.
It's important to understand what the 5G is doing and what they say it's doing. We're told on the IEEE beam-forming document that this technology cooked your eyes like eggs in World War II.
We live in a world now where everything has to be black and white. You're for us or you're against us. You're good or you're bad. You're black or you're white. 5G is a weapon. It's used by the military. They drive up in these technology when they want to scatter a cloud, and they put out these frequencies in a much higher power than 5G will be initially with us, but the same frequency. And people scatter because they get the feeling their skin is on fire. Because the human body, including the skin, is an antenna. It interacts with frequencies and it receives and transmits information. At the cutting edge of understanding of DNA, scientists know that DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information. And we are electromagnetic, electrical organisms, transmitters and receivers of information. When our electromagnetic fields are in balance and harmony, we have health. We have psychological health and we have physical health. The reason that this technological society is causing so much psychological and quote, physical disease is because these frequencies, technologically driven, and we live in this Wi-Fi world now and all the phone masts and all the rest of it, these technologically generated frequencies are scrambling the balance of the human electromagnetic electrical communication systems. And if you scramble them, you create a state of disharmony, dis-ease, which plays through to physical and mental, emotional, psychological dis-ease. And there's another point to this. The brain processes information electrically. It communicates with the cellular structure electrically, and it operates within a certain band of frequency.
Okay, so 5G is going to be weaponized against us potentially.
Yeah, but the point being that they worked out the frequencies of various emotions, including rage, and basically they can play across a community these frequencies without anyone knowing, and it starts to have an effect, and it starts to build rage, it starts to build anger, and people might not realize why they're feeling it, but they start to feel it. And then what they do is they trigger that with an event. Maybe some guy is attacked by the police or something, or somebody's arrested for something they didn't commit, and now there's the trigger. The blue touch paper has been lit of this manufactured frequency-driven rage, and you have mass riots and what have you, and people do things that they wouldn't normally do, and you can make people depressed. You know, the American military, they've admitted this. They have technology that fires frequencies at the enemy that basically breaks the enemy's spirit so they give up and put their weapons down. This is the technology we're dealing with. Now you take that into account and then you think of 5G.